So, Guy Kesteven, thank you so much for coming on today. It's great to see you. You came onto my radar with an article you wrote on bikeperfect.com, where you are the tech editor. And the title of the article is the mountain bike industry is dying. Long live mountain bike. And I found it was a really refreshing take because so much of cycling, especially in media, is just a veneer of marketing that's happening for these brands, because the brands do fund a lot of the things that we do, honestly.
Absolutely.
And so there does have to be a very politically friendly, brand friendly take on many things, which, it's just the way it is. It's not unique to cycling at all. But it was very, very
Now, I don't
refreshing.
want, sorry to cut in, I don't want people misconstruing that. We're brand friendly when the brand produces good product. But
Yes.
I guess I'm coming from an editorial testing background primarily, not a marketing background. So yeah,
Okay. No, I'm
that's,
coming from
that's a
Mark.
brush I'm very careful of avoiding
I
getting
am
picked up at any point.
okay. No, no, no. Fair. Totally fair. I am from the marketing side. And so, like we said, that there are generally, like in any industry, there are generally conservative takes on things. But you came out and you were very honest about what you see in the market, and so that was kind of why I wanted to talk about that today. But maybe just to get started, maybe we can learn a little more about you, where you're from, where you grew up, and kind of how you got into the industry.
Okay, it's very much careering rather than career path. I'm from the north of England, up near actually where the 2019 Road Worlds was. If you remember that memorably drowned edition in 2019, where the Dutch guys were vanishing into bottomless puddles and the entire start village sank into a swamp. That's Harrogate. That's where I live. It normally looks a little less like Shrek's sort of ogre palace and a bit more like kind of Neverland. It's normally quite a posh place, but it's right on the edge of the Yorkshire Dales, not far from the Yorkshire Moors. It's an absolutely perfect spot for cycling. But I actually grew up in York. I was an archaeologist by trade, so I'm professionally qualified to describe broken things covered in mud, which is what I've ended up doing for like the past 27 years. Basically broke myself in SOM-like conditions for about 3 years. My mate who worked in a bike shop, shout out to Russ Burton, who also became a leading bike photographer in time, uh, visited me on site and kind of dropped the bombshell that he just went, so is that all you do? You just sit in a line all day, scratching at the ground like chickens? And suddenly, this kind of passion for discovering the UK's past got put on the back burner, and going to work at the bike warehouse for the bike shop he managed seemed like a good idea to further my career in physiotherapy. But that bench in the background, which just get used to kind of family purposes, is as far as I've ever got with that. Because I was working at, so I worked at this, sorry, yeah, right, back in there, refocus.
But
Uh,
you
so
told me
I'm a
that
bike distributor. I'm training as a physio. Working the warehouse, but I'm a passionate mountain biker. I'm racing all the weekends, and I'm actually reading the magazines in my lunch breaks. So I'm doing a marketing newsletter already, and the MD goes, right, can you start talking to the magazines? Because they had a falling out over an early Pana racer tire. We're still talking smoke dart era here, but the smoke hardcore didn't go down so well, which is fair enough. It was a lousy tire. Paul Smith was right to call that out. And but there
this
was a bit
this
of a
was this was for a distributor, you said.
yeah. This is what's now Zyro Fisher in the UK.
Okay,
But
and
at the
you're
time I joined, it was the death throes of Ron Kitching, which was a very, very traditional. My first days on site were digging nail-in shoe plates and leather-bound cycling diaries out of tea chests. It was a proper old school operation. And it was a very small startup. It's now one of the biggest distributors in the UK. But at the
sure.
time, it was very much, just a handful of us literally working, trying to keep the place open, getting fish and chips after work. But anyway, I kind of got moved up to marketing and sales, which, some people are comfortable with it. You've made a great career with it. I'm Actually, to be fair, I like the marketing side, sales not so much. I come from, I think, what's classed as an artistic background where we don't really talk about money so much, which, it's probably the reason where I am now. But uh, basically, I'm sitting there not really wanting to be doing sales and ads and haggling for stuff. And MBR magazine is just being started up in the UK. Some headhunting's gone on from MBUK. The only thing missing from the puzzle is a fitness writer. So I was famously described by a coach once as not a thoroughbred but a fast donkey. But I keep I keep my I keep my my hand in with the training, the tech, that kind of side of things. So I've always been interested in it, and so I was like, oh, I know, I've got someone I know who might be able to write you a piece for the magazine. And it was Brant Richards. There's a video up on my site actually a couple of weeks ago where I met him again. He now runs a clothing company, but he's famous as a disruptor, as an editor, and as a bike designer for On One and Ragley and things like that. But basically, he went, okay, tell your mate he's got till Thursday to write 3,000 words. And I was like, okay. And then he rang back like 10 seconds later, went, it's you, isn't it, you little. I was like, yeah. He's like, right, you're doing it. And the goal for the first issue was for someone to get a feature into a tabloid newspaper, what they call a red top over here in the UK, for the launch issue, to get them some extra kind of notoriety. I mean, this is the days of Loaded magazine. I don't know if you're familiar with that
No,
in
no.
Europe, but it's kind of the lock, stock, and two smoking barrels Guy Ritchie area of UK media. Oasis, Blur. We think we're strutting about like a bunch of peacocks throwing our, tiny island weight around, thinking we know it all. And that was very much the theme in magazine publishing at that time. So I wrote a piece about penile numbness and thrush and called it Battered Cods and Cods in Batter. And we ran a big full-page spread of fish and chips. That was such an English reference. I apologize to any
It really
local
was.
listeners there. But yeah, if you're UK, that's hilarious. And it was enough for the Daily Mirror to pick it up. And that was kind of 27 years ago. And several million words, several thousand tested bikes, and other, kit
So,
into a
so
very much. I mean, so we're starting then with a few websites existed, a very few. I mean, we'd been looking at it while I was at Zyro, producing like a dealer-facing website, but primarily I'm sending words down on hard copy on floppy disks every month and doing the captions on a fax.
sure. And
And now,
this was like full blown, print era.
oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so we're able to today we can even bridge it because a lot of the younger writers obviously, don't know. But you've seen the whole curve basically from print to almost completely digital.
Yeah, yeah. I
And you've been able to keep relevant through all of that, which I imagine has not been easy.
It's the boiling a frog analogy, isn't it? If it happens slowly enough,
You don't
you
notice it.
kind of hang on in there. I mean, yeah, I never got the hang of HTML. I have no idea how Twitter worked, or even if that's now called X. But anyway, yeah, and to be honest, LinkedIn, going on LinkedIn with that piece was a big change for me. That was like, standing outside the headmaster's office and seeing into the staff room from a kind of, oh my God, this is where the grown-ups hang out and talk
Yeah.
business. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, we're
it
not
wasn't meant
all.
as rage bait, but it seemed to have an effect. But yeah, I mean, literally, when I started, suspension was rubber elastomers, and then gradually people added oil damping and things like that. So I've just gradually had it stretch out. I've some of the bikes I've said are the best things in the world would now just have people lying on the floor howling with laughter. Like linkage white bikes, like Trek Y bikes, things like that. People are like, oh my God, you used to ride that. I was like, mate, that was the pinnacle. And so, I would not like to be dropping straight into all these crazy kinetic algebra and stuff like that in one go. That's the deep end. I've been lucky. And in the same way with, I guess, with tech on the publishing side, I started using a GoPro just as the smallest, easiest microphone I could grab for recording notes while I was riding. Because these thoughts are going through my head while I'm riding.
Sure.
And then And then I just started speaking them out loud because I'm riding in the woods on my own. And actually, in a weird way, if I'm talking about the bike, it cuts out a load of negative self talk about my riding skills. So if I'm going, oh, what's the head angle on this chameleon? Rather than going, oh, for like, why did you brake going into that turn, you idiot? It's just like, yeah, if I wasn't talking about the bike, this, oh man, it would be a bike crash, not a car crash. But yeah, it wouldn't be pretty. So it kind of evolved from there.
So, so you've written mostly like it sounded like you started in cycling and you've been continuously writing in cycling because now, like I said earlier, you're the tech editor, so you're doing bike testing for Bike Perfect, but you've
Yeah,
been consistently in cycling writing in some form or another for the last 27 years.
yeah.
Wow.
First, I had a feature. Well, my mum's dog because I was still working at Zyro, and they were pretty keen on keeping all things in house. So my mum's dog, Toby Williams, I think wrote a catalog launch for Bike 95 or 96. I think that's Chips Chippendale actually got me my first published work. He deserves a shout out. But then MBR, literally, I thought it would be pin money while I finished my physio course,
Right.
which is what I was planning to do, but went from writing one fit to ride feature in the first issue to two features in the second. And by the third one, Brant, the editor, had got bored of bike testing. So it's like, right, we're riding a load of budget bikes from uh, Glasgow up to Fort William, up the West Highland Way. I'm bored of writing them. Come along, write it. We'll see how you do. And yeah, that was 5 bikes on that one. And been full time ever since that. You know, I never got time to work on the building site or take on my physio. So yeah, I lucked it out from there. And along the way, there's been, you know, I mean, like I say, Bike Perfect is the kind of current estuary my effluent is flowing into. But I've worked for MBR, MBUK, Watt Mountain Bike, Maximum Mountain Bike, a whole triathlon magazines, road magazines like Cycling Plus. So, you know, if you can pedal it, I've probably written on it, and a few associated books as well. I've done like guidebooks for Rafa. I've done some stuff for Brooks because they needed an eccentric Englishman to talk about eccentric Englishmen for a chapter. And speaking of eccentric mountain bikers, I ghost wrote or co-wrote the Gary Fisher autobiography
Oh wow.
years
I
ago. That was a ride. That was super interesting. But he is a fascinating guy to spend time with, and he cooks a good egg. I tell you, we spent a week in Mallorca, like getting the things down pat. That boy cooks a good egg, and if he knows the Trek Segafredo team, including Yolanda Neff, are way up the road, he can still haul. That was a ferocious paceline to get to the hotel so he could meet everybody before they turned in. Yeah, guys are savage still.
Yeah, I had him on the show a couple months ago, and I was amazed at his command of PR. He has a
Yeah. Oh
sensibility for
yeah.
PR that is just unbelievable.
And it's like it's born into him. I mean, that comes
Yeah,
from like his mum selling real estate
yeah.
and stuff like that.
His
But
mom was in a worked for a magazine or something.
yeah, yeah, she was a realtor, but she used to like provide copy to all the local magazines.
Yeah,
So she was like, yeah, give them the story, become the person they go to for the story, and that's just free PR.
yeah. It
And
was
that's
cool.
exactly what he did with mountain bikes, the shop, when he was, you know, he just became that source. And yeah, it's
So
demonetized. What the key to that is, I mean, anybody can become the like, you know, hired gun. The key to that, especially now, is monetizing it.
sure, sure, because you do have to. I mean, we don't do this stuff for free. I mean, we can't unless unless you've got some personal wealth. But getting back to the I guess we can say that you're one of the most prolific writers in the magazine or in the cycling industry. And essentially, your article, I mean, it reads like, with some authority in a sense that it was your commentary. It was sort of it feels like you were just like, look, guys, you guys made a mess here, and I'm going to talk about it. And does that kind of how did this article came about?
Yeah, yeah, it was, you know, it was. I just literally, I mean, it was one of those classic ones where you didn't even it was pretty stream of consciousness.
Yeah, it
It's like
feels
on a
like it.
Friday morning. Okay, let's drop an opinion here, and it just, oh, okay, that was all in there, right? Let's go. But it's great. That's in the same way that if you're reviewing a bike, some bikes just like they just
They
kind of
talk to you.
cantilever out. It's just, it's like a fire escape. The whole thing, the whole bike just comes out, hits the floor, boom, done. That's it. That's the bike done. And that was kind of, I guess that was as close as you'll get to my thoughts and frustrations and just a feeling that, if this was a van, it needs a good hard boot to get the diesel filter cleared out because it's just choking right now.
It is. One line here that I'll read is the basic issue now is that the industry is doing a great impression of the supermarket turkey aisle an hour before closing on Christmas Eve. Overordered, overstocked, and desperate to sell a fraction of true cost just to grab a bit of reckless investment back. Stories of millions of unwanted and sometimes unpaid for bikes being held in warehouses and docks in the Far East at the start of the year are old news. Now the rumors are of containers worth of complete bikes just being landfilled or tipped into the sea because even if they ever sell, it'll be far less for the price of keeping them in storage any longer. This is not hyperbole. I mean, it's yeah.
I mean, if you go through if you go through the comments under that under that piece, I know it might not be directly under that piece because a lot of people shared it, but there were numerous instances of people going, "Oh yeah, I'm on a NDA, but I know there's like a big company that just bulldozed a load of P&A into a field. You know, it's happening." And then, how many, it's not just containers being lost overboard. I'm pretty sure we might see, shops and warehouses catching fire, things like that. I think, because people are desperate. People are, and I think at that time, I kind of had quite a black and white view of kind of who the villains were and who it's all started. But you realize that there's such a pressure and such a tide surging behind people that pushes them forward. You go like, oh, well, people overordered. It's just like, if you didn't overordered, you weren't even in the game. You had to overorder to have a voice, to have a place in that vendor queue.
Well,
If you just went, well, I only need what I normally
it
need, they'd be
what
like, let's kick the small guy to the back of the line. And again, with investors as well, this is something Sandy Plenty brought out from Trailhead, talking on another podcast. He's just like, unless you went, oh yeah, we're going to grow 3 times,
nobody was
you're
gonna.
going to lose out to the guy who's saying we're going to grow 4 times. It's just,
Yeah, no, that is. I want to talk about this for a second, guy. I want to zero in on this because no one is talking about this. It's the best example that I heard. I heard it from Jiayu Yang, who is a Taiwanese entrepreneur. Her grandfather started Kenda. She was the owner of Kenstone, and she sold it in 21. And she was in the middle of all of this with Kenstone at the time. And she said that Peloton rolls in and they're taking all of the saddle capacity from the entire bicycling market. Peloton.
yeah,
And it's exactly what you said in a nutshell. It's like if you didn't come in to get attention from these producers, you weren't getting anything. And so it was
no,
more of like a God, how would you say it? It was just like a game of chicken. It was like who's gonna be the
yeah,
craziest.
yeah. Yeah, it's just people shouting up. It's birds and beaks in nests. It's whoever squawks loudest gets the worm.
And so it
You know,
just
and if you look at Peloton, you're like, oh my God, look at the size of that order. Look at the size of, they're the guys with the studio next to Tesla. This is our future. This is what I'm retiring on. Hello, helicopter. I'm supplying Peloton now. But I think if anyone who's been in the distributor who's, and has seen like the big shops or something come in and go, hey, we'll have 3 containers. And you're like, yes, we got the big contract. We've got 3 containers ordered. And then next month they go, we'll have 3 containers again, but we're running a promo this month on your gear. So actually, one of those containers is free. And you're like, what? And you're like, do you want to sell us do you want to still sell us 2 containers? Or are you just happy shipping out those little cardboard boxes of, 20 rear lights at a time? And you're like, they got you. That's where it happens.
it was an arms race. And
Yeah.
and so was sort of the supply chain and the nature of the market sort of create, and it sounds like if we got another run on demand, it would happen again, because there really is no way around it. Honestly, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess until it's just the people who can't put the chips on the table are no longer at the table.
right. But that,
And
but
you have Vegas, and then you have like, your hobby gamers at home. That's what it's saying. It's heading towards automotive.
sure,
It's funny. We're already there with
consolidation.
yeah, yeah. We're already there with tires.
Yeah,
In a lot of instances, bike tires are just a tiny amount of the. Look at Conti. Bike tires have been running for ages, but only recently Conti have gone, "Whoa, we sell bike tires, really?" You know, and suddenly we're now part of that big consideration for those big guys, and that means big money, big corporate strategy, and a real change, I guess. And I guess that's what I was trying to call out in the piece. And it's not just industry, it's media as well, because all editors are sat there just looking now going, oh, that piece is doing well, let's do more of that.
sure.
Or even to the point where headlines are getting switched. You go, oh, okay, that headline worked really well on that piece, so I'll switch it to this piece, or something similar to this piece. Oh, look, the numbers are going up on that. It's
But that's
so
not, but that's not new though, Gary. There's nothing new about that.
no, but it's more obvious now. It's instant. You
Yeah,
see the numbers
it's
turning around.
it's more, yeah, it's more obvious, it's more immediate, but writing things, for clicks or for headlines, there's nothing new about it. The consolidation, yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, it's more so, I guess in your opinion, with consolidation, like what brands we'll talk about brands that have the right to exist and which ones don't. Is it more of like you're going to have your rocket ships that consolidate and then you're going to have your niche brands? I mean, I believe that that'll still be that way, or I mean, what are you seeing or what do you think is going to happen?
What I would want to see and what I think we'll see are wildly different things, unfortunately. Uh, I think, I mean, already you're seeing it's the smallest brands without the fat on their bones who've always survived by being the mammals kind of running between the dinosaurs' feet, being the evolvers, being the agile brands.
Sure.
They're the ones who are finding it really hard right now. They're the ones that I'm talking to are struggling. Then there's this whole middle kind of adipose tissue, fatty belt of just, I don't know whether they're not really aware of what they're doing or they're just happy what they're doing. They're kind of medium risk, catalog aided design product for the most part. Maybe trading on a name that you still have on this, still have a sticker over on your toolbox from the 1990s. They've done some great things in the past and they can pop those on their web pages. And some of I'm not saying there aren't guys in those companies who are doing a really good, really innovative job, whether it's media, whether it's design. There's some real gems within that, but it's like, they're the small nutritional nuggets within this big kind of monos slab of basically inert company who will kind of do okay product, but mainly concentrate on selling it cheaper than the others, and they're gradually just kind of pushing it down. And they'll be the ones who are either dumping stuff now because they were quite late to realizing what trouble they were in, or they're not really contributing. That's what I'm saying. They're not doing a great deal of advocacy. They're not doing a great deal of interesting marketing. They're not really promoting events as such. There'll be a few banners floating about, but they're just kind of meh. They're just kind of wandering along in the middle, and it's the same. It's the same with media as well. There's just people kind of regurgitating stuff, relying on SEO friendly headlines and listicles and close pass videos, or that kind of lowest common denominator, instant fix, sugary content, rather than like really investing in deep dive journalism or really going the extra mile with content. You're seeing like lights reviews now. This is a particular peeve of mine because I've spent many years every summer getting every light you could possibly get sitting in a workshop all night with fans blowing on those damn things and a stopwatch, waiting for them all to just die, and then recharging them because you can't go off the first cycle, and like running that 3 or 4 times. I've got some fantastic shots of me doing that in the past with like 50 lights on a workbench, trying to get the workshop as cold as possible, as many fans. And that stuff is a pain. It is a major pain in the ass, especially when you are getting. I mean, to be a professional product tester now, you're working as it's an industrial process. I'm
Sure.
kind of infamous for riding with like one glove of one type on one hand, one on another, different shoes, having more shoes in my backpack so I can swap around, stuff like that. Just because you've got to do all that compare and contrast stuff to make the turnover of a product fast enough that you can make a living from it.
Right. Right. And so I think what you're saying, if I can try and distill it down, is that you're seeing a kind of a race to the bottom in terms of the way that things are produced, whether it be bikes, whether it be products, whether it be um, kind of an optimization mindset out of necessity also, but as well as journalism, where you're saying, no, this is a trade. This is not just something that you go through the motions doing
Yeah.
to kind of margin off the back of it. And I can see, how these companies, it sort of goes kind of, do you just kind of put the things in place and just try and get that little margin off the top of it, or do you actually take a real genuine dive into the market and dive in and be a real tradesman? And I think in cycling, generally, people are in it for that reason, because we're not in it for the money, guy.
No.
We're not in
That's
it for the
becoming
money.
evidently clear this
Yeah.
year.
But I think maybe this has to do with the whipsaw of, the money grab around COVID probably exasperated it. Media being under pressure, like as we all know, that they do have to optimize. So I think these are probably natural occurrences that are happening. And I totally agree with you that it's really not fun to see, and it's not good for the industry as a whole.
Yeah. Sorry, just
But
to jump in.
yeah,
I think rather than people like, I don't think there's anyone making a conscious race for the bottom. I
no,
think there maybe were a few people who were just like, right, let's crush everyone on pricing. And we know what happened to those guys at the end of last year, which
sure.
is weird. Nobody ever really talks about it. It's like, oh, what happened with Wiggle and Chain
Yeah,
Reaction? Like,
I love
well, they
that.
were selling at a loss
Yeah, and they were
for decades.
destroying, and they were just, and they were destroying brick
Yeah,
and mortar like left and right,
yeah,
without pity, like with
yeah.
no pity whatsoever, no mercy. They were just, and no one really sat down and was like, you know what, those guys, they did fly too close to the sun. Like no one's really, they did. I don't think they got their comeuppance like in the media hardly at
No,
all.
no, it's weird. It's like banks going down and going, oh, well, a bank collapsed. We'd better bail them out. I mean, here in the UK, the government just goes, oh dear, some of my banking friends made a bit of a whoopsie. We'd better bail them out with all its taxpayers' money. It's like, no, these guys were trying to drive the market into
Yeah,
the
they did.
ground because they knew they could take the blow. I
Yep.
think the analogy for most people is that the ship is overturning or sinking, and they're desperately kind of clawing at the sides, trying to hit the water last. But there are a few people consciously just going, right, I don't want to get it taken down with this. I'm jumping and I'm going to, like White is a prime example. You might not know. They've kind of rebranded and they've massively cut back their product range.
Okay.
So, they had a fully comprehensive mountain bike range and they've just gone, right, what's selling? We've got a great e bike. We can make a new lightweight e bike. So that's the hot category. We'll put everything in those and we'll just leave everything else. We'll leave all our possessions behind. We're not taking the picture of grandma or the potted plant. We're just going with these and we're going full effect. And they're using that to get clearance, to jump clear and to kind of leapfrog the issues now. And they've got new pricing and stuff like that. Focus did it a couple of years ago, which is interesting for people looking at the Pon Hub situation now, where the news is Joe Graney, is now no longer in his chair at Santa Cruz as of yesterday. But at Focus, they went through a massive strategy range cull essentially.
Sure.
They're just like, well, why do we need a bike with every Shimano group set and every SRAM group set? Which Shimano group set sells the best? Which SRAM group set sells the best? It's like, well, there you go. We'll have that SLX one. We'll have this XO one, for example, and we have two bikes. There you go. There's one for the Shimano customer, one for the SRAM customer.
So there
Because
was
right
a
now, because right now the customer, almost one of the biggest issues. This is a wild. This is a tangent for another time, but the biggest issue I think now is the customer has too much choice.
right.
You look at what happened with Orange. People are like, oh, don't know what happened with Orange. I go on there as a bike tester, someone who's watched their range expand since they were touching them. A sail brand for windsurfs in a warehouse just up the road from me. They had, I think, 36 different models
Oh
of
wow.
bike
Right.
across e-bikes, everything from balance bikes right through to, handmade monocoque e-bikes and downhill bikes. Just going, I don't know which bike I'm even looking at, let alone where to start unraveling this.
And
And it's
that
the same. And I think it's the same with dealers. It's the same with media. It's the same with advertising. There's just so much. It's just so overwhelming. We need that rendering down.
and
We need the
that's
fat off it so we can see the muscle and we can see the bone.
and
It's
that is probably a symptom of the lack of real hard decisions, in a sense that, like, who are we? What are we? Where it's just easier to say, okay, let's expand into these other categories.
Yeah.
I mean, expanding into a new category, especially for marketing, is, it's a safe bet and it's easy. It's like, oh, look what we're doing now. That's
Yeah.
instead of actually digging in and actually really kind of finding, with a smaller range, finding what you guys do better than someone else, where it's just easier to jump into another one. So that's probably,
Hey, gravel.
um, yeah, well, let's leave gravel alone. I mean, we can talk about fat bikes if you want to. Uh,
I'll leave that to James Wang. He's still the fat guy. He's the fat bike guy. I love the fact that every winter James is like, "Yay, big tires again." I'm like, "Damn, Colorado, you have it nice." But just I mean, flicking back right to the start when you said that kind of we almost have a more friendly and accepting relationship, I think, from a marketing and media point of view with the industry. I think maybe that's the issue. Maybe that's it. It's a very tolerant issue because everybody knows everybody's not in it for the money. So everybody kind of isn't cruel,
Yeah, there's
really.
that, or they just, or in media, there's just so much pressure that no one wants to take a risk,
Yeah. Yeah.
really.
Yeah. But we all know. I mean, we could both sit here if we weren't on mic or we were off record and go, yeah, these are the people who I know in my part of the industry who are just nice people, but they're not doing a great job. If we're honest, I mean, that's a horribly arrogant thing for me. And if I have no work from here on in, then yeah, fine. That's proved that I'm one of them. We all need to. I think now's the time we all need to kind of stand up and be counted. If we're not adding something interesting to the pot, just like boom.
Yeah, and
I
that's
guess. I guess that's
no, and
that's
that
that's the punch in the glove of the feature. I guess.
it is. It absolutely is. And that's, and what you're saying is like, now that there's a culling of the herd happening, it's time to sort of have a come to Jesus moment, and everybody really needs to kind of step back and say, what are we really doing here? Because yeah, it did sort of get out of control around COVID. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, what are the next steps? You think this is just going to be the natural progression of things, that people have to do this? Because I mean, in terms of media, like, where's the bottom at for media? I'm not seeing, and where's the bottom at for the market? I don't think we've seen it yet,
No,
honestly.
no. Well, nobody has to do anything. That's the thing. But I've spent most of I don't know if I'm sure I bet a lot of people have been doing the same. I could have just gone into January and just gone, oh my god, I have a huge backlog of products. I'll just hammer through those as fast as I can, get them out there. Okay, so my rates have gone down again because nobody actually reads product reviews on websites anymore. They're kind of just there to make it look like we're an authentic website. You know, most people are there for the Black Friday deals, for the listicles, for the news. That's the harsh truth. You can see that in numbers. That's on an Excel spreadsheet somewhere. And my latest rates are literally half what they were in 2000.
Sure.
And so and for me, that meant I had to sit down and go, well, I think I've still got value. My conceit, my arrogant conceit, as the old man shouting at the sky, going, I've been testing mountain bikes for 27 years, thinks I still have value. The number of conversations I'm having, the reaction on LinkedIn, talking to you guys, talking to the people I know in the media, I think I still have value. Or are they just being, oh, bless him, Kez, he's still going? Am I the guy at the end of the marathon who they've kept the last 100 meters of tape up on the one Portaloo? Because you go, oh, he's still going, bless him. I think everybody needs to sit down and go, you might think you have value, but do you actually have value? My job now is to go out and go, okay, I need to change the format on my YouTube because I'm as guilty as anyone else. I've been doing the same old thing for years on there. Oh, no, riding down a hill, talking about the bikes, but we can't do that anymore. We've got to make ourselves stand out. And in the same way with the websites, I need to make sure that if people read a review that I've written, they know it's me. They know it's me, and they know that because it's authoritative, because it's experience, because I have a lot of passion and knowledge of the product built over many, many years. Because my biggest enemy is AI now.
Sure.
But on the other hand, I think AI might be the Travis Bickle taxi driver scenario we all need. It might be the rain that washes the streets clean. Because if you can't tell your work from AI, then
Yeah. What are you
that's
doing
your
here?
fault.
Yeah. What are you doing
That's
here?
your fault.
Totally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, if I just sit here going, it's not fair, I should be paid better than this. It's just like, well, no, you have a
No,
value.
the market decides.
If it's not worth paying you more than that, it's not worth paying you more than that. We can all sit here and go, I demand this as my day rate. But at the end of the day, videographers are up against the kid in the warehouse with a drone or the lass from marketing with an iPhone who's actually got a really good eye.
Sure.
And, it's changed, and we need to keep agile. We need to keep tight. We need to keep interesting. No, there are no laurels to rest on anymore.
No.
And I think that's a good thing. I mean, I guess we're both freelancers, so we're painfully aware of this. We know how many plates we've probably got spinning. If you panned out, it wouldn't just be nice house plants and calm serenity. There'd be a whole. I'm imagining there's a whole ton of stuff going on behind you that you'll be getting into the rest of today to
Sure.
really move things along.
Of course, you have to.
Because, yeah, exactly. You have to. And I think there needs to be a realization at every level, whether you're a retailer, whether you're a distributor, whether you're a bike brand, everybody needs to just go stand in the mirror for a bit and not say, I am a wonderful, worthwhile person. I will contribute something great to the day. Love yourself.
I think
No,
it's
you just need to have a good hard look and go, I'm carrying a bit of spare here, you know, or
yeah,
maybe I'm not in as great shape as I want. You just run up those stairs and see what it feels like, and hopefully, the people who I want to, I don't care who it is. I know everybody in the industry, and the real danger is you gravitate towards the small brands, the ones who are really invested and obviously invested, where you've got the CEO on screen going, hey, we're really passionate about this. I don't think he's any less passionate than the guy at SRAM who sits there and works
sure.
out that teeth profile that makes powertrain and T-type work perfectly. I know those guys too. And those guys are no less invested in how much, in their job, in their passion. But everybody needs to. I mean, we are
Everyone needs to
so
eat.
lucky to work in a passion industry.
Yeah, yeah, we are.
Dear
We
Lord,
absolutely.
we shouldn't abuse it by just kind of, doing the recorded clap in the audience. We should get up there and actually,
Phoning
because
it
if
in.
you're not bright-eyed, if you're not really
Find something
going
else.
for it, yeah,
Find something else.
yeah.
So, no, this kind of puts a bow on all this. The notion that things have gotten people have gotten a bit lax because of potentially um, I don't know if it was the interest rates. I don't know if it was the venture capital money that came in, the private equity money that came in. I don't know if it was people veiling it as optimization, or like we talked about, line extensions instead of innovation. But yeah, no, I appreciate the candor, Guy, and I think we should put a part two to this another day,
Okay.
because I think this is just kind of a moment in time. I think today is January 26th. I've heard some small positive kind of blips coming out of the US. But 2023 was bad, was really bad. And I hope that the next time we talk, whether it be in 3 months or 6 months, that we'll have a little bit better news. But like I said, I'm glad we got to get on. I'm glad we got to talk about this, and definitely to be continued. In the meantime, do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, thanks massive for the opportunity. I agree. A lot of the conversations I've had this month have been really positive. There's green shoots right across the industry, whether that's if that is small vendors or whether that's the major players. And there's kind of I feel like there's bulbs growing as well. There's some thundering going on. I'm going to more press launches again. There's more bikes popping up from my side, which I think if you can't if you spread that out across the industry, I think you'll be seeing that as there's now growth. There's a movement forwards. So as much as stuff might be being buried in fields, there's also shoots coming up. That's my real hope. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity to talk. As I warned you at the start, I've got an e-boat motor for a mouth, but like side pull brakes to stop that mouth from carrying on. So thanks to everybody listening for their patience. Yeah, you can find me at Guy Kez TV on Instagram, YouTube, Guy Kez TV, and then if you want to see me in words at your leisure, I write for bikeperfect.com website, which is a global website, and MBR in the UK, and you'll find stuff everywhere if you really want to go down that hole. But yeah, that's my primary sources. If it's got Guy Kez TV on it, that's me. And what do you say on LinkedIn? Available to hire. We're all freelancers, right?
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, just available. Let's talk. I think that's the thing we all need to do now. Let's get if you've got a passion for doing interesting stuff, like you said, it's not just a Stelvio hairpin. We need something different to that.
Thanks, Guy.
Okay. Thanks very much, Wyatt.